All right. Today we are diving into some really powerful ideas from author Robert Greene. We're talking about mastering the incredibly complex game of human interaction. So let's just jump right in.
Okay, so Robert Greene kicks things off with a pretty tough pill to swallow. He says most of us think we're good with people, but we're really not. The problem is, we don't see people for who they actually are. Instead, we're just seeing a reflection of our own hopes, our own fears, and all our assumptions.
And that, right there, is the big promise here. What if you could learn to peel back all those biases? What if you could start seeing the social world with, incredible clarity? Well, it all starts with figuring out why we get it wrong so often in the first place. So, what's the big roadblock? According to Greene, it's something we all have, our own natural self-absorption. I mean, think about it. We get so wrapped up in ourselves that we miss pretty much everything that's happening right in front of our faces. Okay, let's picture a typical conversation. Someone's talking to you. Are you really listening? Or are you, running through your to-do list, thinking about your own worries, or just planning what brilliant thing you're going to say next? Yeah, we're so often worried about how we're being judged that we totally fail to actually observe the other person. The fix for this is, well, it's simple on paper, but pretty tough to do. We have to learn the skill of conscious observation. It's all about making an intentional shift, getting out of our own heads and focusing on the world right in front of us. So, where do you even start? I mean, that sounds like a huge task, right? But Greenie has a really practical way to approach this. It's not about some overnight transformation. It's about taking small, deliberate steps. He calls them baby steps. So, here's a challenge for you. In your very next conversation, just try this for maybe 10 minutes. Step 1, shut off that voice in your head, your internal monologue. Step 2, force yourself to actually listen. Step 3, hunt for just one little nugget, one interesting thing about their character. And finally, step 4, watch for all the cues they're giving off that aren't words. See, people are constantly, and I mean constantly, broadcasting how they really feel. A genuine smile, it's not just the mouth, it lights up their whole face, especially around the eyes. And have you ever noticed this? When you bring up a topic someone is super passionate about, their eyes literally light up. That's the kind of data you're looking for. Okay, so once you start getting the hang of observing individuals, there's another layer to this. It's about understanding these powerful, invisible currents of emotion that flow between people. Let's call it the language of moods. Grain points out this is basically an evolutionary thing. Way before we had complex language, our ancestors needed to be super tuned in to the moods of the tribe just to survive. And guess what? That programming is still running inside us. Moods are contagious. Someone else's emotional state can hit you way harder than anything they say. This quote about the old-time actor Errol Flynn is just perfect. People said his mood was so relaxed and confident that it was infectious. He didn't have to argue or try to convince anybody of anything. Just being around him was enough to make people drop their guard. Now that is a serious level of influence, and it's happening completely without words. All right, pay close attention to this next part, because it's like the master key to everything. If you can really get this one concept, you'll suddenly understand why people get so defensive, why they push back on certain ideas, and what really truly motivates them. So, Greene argues that pretty much every single one of us carries around this hidden story about who we are. He calls it our self-opinion. And let me tell you, it is incredibly important to our ego. We will protect it at all costs. So, understanding what makes it tick is absolutely critical. So, what is this self-opinion actually built on? Well, according to Greene, it all comes down to 3 universal pillars. Here they are. First, I am autonomous and independent. I make my own choices. Second, I am intelligent in my own way. And third, I am a good person. Now, here's the crucial part. We all believe these 3 things about ourselves. So if you, even by accident, challenge any of them, if you imply someone was manipulated, or that they're not smart, or that they're not a good person, bam, they will shut down and get defensive instantly. Okay, so that brings us to how to actually use this. If challenging that self-opinion puts up a brick wall, then it makes sense that working with it is the key to lowering someone's defenses and actually building some influence.
And this is it, right here. The philosopher William James said it, and Green quotes him. More than anything else, people just crave recognition. They want you to see them the way they see themselves, as independent, as smart, and as good. If you can give them that feeling of validation, you create a powerful opening.
But hold on, this is not about cheap flattery. In fact, obvious flattery is the total insult. Why? Because it implies the other person is simple enough to fall for it, which attacks their belief that they're intelligent. Strategic validation is different. It's about genuinely seeing and acknowledging the qualities they're proud of. That's what builds real trust. A really powerful way to put this into practice is something we've all heard of: reverse psychology. But here's the key. Instead of fighting against someone's resistance, you just reframe the whole situation. You make it so that doing what you want actually confirms their self-opinion. This case study with the rebellious teen makes it super clear. The problem? The kid won't do his homework. The mistake? Ordering him to study. Why? Because that just reinforces his need to be a rebel. It challenges his autonomy. But the solution is brilliant. His mom reframes it. She suggests that studying would actually be an act of rebellion against a teacher who wants him to fail. And it works. The kid studies like crazy, not to obey, but to prove the teacher wrong. See? It works with his nature, not against it. So let's recap. We've talked about observing people, understanding moods, validating their self-opinion. But Green argues that the most important work, the real work, isn't about other people at all. It's internal. It's about self-awareness. When we can be honest and admit that, yeah, we have those same flaws too, envy, a bit of narcissism, pride, we naturally become less judgmental of other people. The story of the writer Anton Chekhov is a perfect example. He had an abusive father, and instead of just becoming bitter, he made a choice to try and understand him. And that one shift in his own attitude completely transformed the entire dynamic of his family. And that really brings us to the whole point of this. In Green's own words, it's about knowing who you are. Mastering human nature was never about manipulating other people. It's really a tool for self-awareness. Once you start to see these patterns in others, you can finally, maybe for the first time, see them clearly in yourself. So I'll leave you with this question. The real work isn't about figuring other people out, it's about us. What part of yourself are you going to get to know first? Because understanding the world out there, well, it really begins with understanding the world in here. Thanks for tuning in.